Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Happy Thursday. Our first Thursday in a while without an NFL game, but we're going to take it up talking about the college football national championship. Props are out, lines are out, so we're going to unpack it a little bit with the model. Then we got some NBA for the day, of course, and all the time in the world for all of your questions. So I'm going to bring in Steven, bring in Jake. Now, simple, I just want to get the conversation going here, all right? We have Washington and Michigan. Our model projection has a pretty heavy lean on the Michigan spread. What makes it like Michigan so much?
Just like the basic statistics that favor Michigan. They're really good against the pass. So we have Penix throwing more than one interception in pretty much every simulation that we have going on. It's just like the basic statistics favor Michigan. But if you look into things, they haven't faced a quarterback like Michael Penix, and their whole schedule, the Big Ten. It's two very contrasting styles between the Pac-12, now the Pac-2, and the Big Ten. So it's going to be a very interesting game. So we were saying before that we like Michigan, but we're not sure how confident we are. But if you take Michigan, you want to take them with that -4.5. If you take Washington, you want to take that money line.
Yeah, if you want to bring up my screen for a second, Mackenzie, the weirdest thing about Washington is I don't know if you guys can see the game log. What you see is this is the Washington's 3 of their last 4 games. You see pluses. That means they were the underdog. It's not +1. This is +3.5 dogs, and that was bet down versus Texas neutral field. +10 versus Oregon. +105 at Oregon State. So this is our model. The premise of our whole model is basically to replicate the Vegas odds makers models. And then when there's a big disparity, identify if that disparity is due to something that the odds makers have adjusted based on a public narrative or a statistic that our model has picked up on that the odds makers have not. In this case, but 9 out of 10 times, our model and the odds makers are going to be very similar. So anyone who's looking from a pure statistics standpoint thinks that the statistics say if this is a basketball season, Washington would not be where they are, despite how great, but this is a one and done situation with the best quarterback, and arguably deserved the Heisman, and three NFL receivers and one surefire top 15 pick, right, Jake? So, that's what it comes down to. So if you're a numbers person, believes in the numbers and that everything regresses to the numbers, then Michigan is your play. If you're looking at this, the team that is winning games as outright underdogs, then Washington is yours.
Perhaps the biggest complaint with sports models is that they don't take in the clutchness factor. Like everyone's biggest complaint. AI models don't necessarily factor in how clutch a player is. Like, sure, the statistics can tell one story, but a player is clutch tells another story. And so that's the big thing here.
And I want to bring up another number that it doesn't pick up on things that a player never did until they needed to. So last year is the CJ Stroud running all over the place versus Georgia out of necessity. And then this year, Penix, we all know he doesn't have ACLs, right? Or they're both been torn. But at Indiana, when I was first aware of Michael Penix in an Indiana upset as like 20-point underdogs to Penn State. And I remember him running for a critical touchdown late.
Was it a touchdown or not was the big question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I had Penn State. And I was like hated Michael Penix at the moment. But, I think that this could be a case where, now that they're in this winter, it's all on the line, that you might see Penix be able to go back to what he was when he first on the scene at Indiana, which is a really effective scrambler as well. So that kind of dynamic, if he can run for 2 or 3 first downs, that leads to a whole nother scoring drive that no model or stats going to pick up on.
And you'll probably get a pretty low number on his rushing yards too, I would assume, after the season.
And that's an interesting, call, Mackenzie. That'd be
in college football, sacks count for negative yards for
That's
their
scary.
quarterback, but that offensive line is the best in college football. If you saw it against Texas,
Yeah, that's funny. I don't even see his line on the Dodge Jam board. I don't see Penix rushing yards.
McCarthy, Penix. So
I want to. Yeah, this is a good question and comment, because if you look at the model projection and the spread that we have, you would consider Michigan to cover probably an A+. Downgrade it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, because you can only quantify clutch factors so much. It's basically statistics which tell you Michigan versus Penix and his 3 receivers that are just really hard to believe. What are they going to do? So that's why it's not exactly an A+ pick in our head right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what we said would take, if you take the spread, take Michigan. If you take the money line, take Washington money line.
And I don't want to go too much of a tangent, but I hate people have a tough time understanding why a quantitative model can't be linear. The stronger the percentage, the bigger the difference, the more confidence. It just doesn't work that way. The same factor, the 1 or 2 stats that are going to result in the model favoring one side over the other are is not going to change. Mm-hmm. So, real quick, if you compare species of animals, the larger the brain species are smarter than the smaller brain species. But once you get into it within a species, the larger brain individual is not smarter. Jake is not smarter than me, even though his record is much better than mine. I am not smarter than Mackenzie, even though my head is probably bigger than hers. So that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, once you hit a threshold of statistical confidence, it's all kind of the same. So don't read too much into a 60% chance to cover versus a 65% chance versus a 70% chance to cover. It just doesn't work that way. If it did work that way, then I wouldn't be here, because I would have made a buttload of money in 2006 with my original company, because that's what exactly I pitched to my investors back in 2004, that I had the model, had the stronger, ones. And so, I learned the hard way that that's just not how it works. So again, the if you believe in the numbers that they're going to fall through here, then Michigan is definitely the play. We were saying we would take Michigan, at -4.5, or Washington as a heavy plus dog on money line, but not Washington to lose by 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough game. The Hollywood games, the games with all the attention on them, that's just when the lines get the sharpest. So that's not always where we're going to find the best value, but we can certainly always tell you our opinions and how we think, the game is going to go and the best value you're going to get. So if anyone has any more questions regarding, here we go. Here's a parlay, Michigan money line in the under, you can get at +190 here, which I don't think
we have value on the over in this game. Probably, just because, Michigan, put up 27, but they had a lot of against Alabama. Obviously, it went to overtime, but they had a lot of mishaps. They ran the ball very well. So I'm not sure how I'm not going to pick against Penix and those receivers to not be able to put up over 25.
Yeah. It's hard to root against them right now, I think.
It's interesting because Michigan's strength is their run, and Washington, if you look at their PFF, they're 72nd in the country out of 133 teams in run defense. And Michigan's secondary is very good, and Washington's strength is. So I said, if you're playing strength, Michigan has a strength, but yeah, it's just so many other factors that are not being quantified.
Mm-hmm. All right. Enough chit-chat of that game. Any more questions, we're happy to answer them as well. But a good place to start, get the head churning for the bets for this game. Let's move over to things we can make money on tonight. We'll go to the NBA here. Only 2 games. So again, one of those situations where Vegas has a lot of attention on them, only so much value to look at. We do, however, like the Bucks. They were 9.5-point favorites. Then there was some steam towards the Spurs. Now they're 9-point favorites.
Yeah, I'm wearing red because there was a bloodbath for me last night, and this is like,
it's been a rough 2 days.
Bad day. It's my mother-in-law. She was in town, completely screwed up my head. I've also tried to drink less wine and caffeine as part of my New Year's resolution. I'm going back to the cycle of just fueling up all day on caffeine and self-medicating at night. I'm relying on the Bucks, who just had 2. Were embarrassed 2 straight nights by Indiana. They've been a very bad defensive team this year, and that has probably a lot to do with Dame Lillard and his inability to stop opposing guards from penetrating. So recently, the Bucks have allowed 65, 61, 72, and 64% 2-point shooting. They lost 3 of the 5 games recently. They're not forcing any turnovers. So after last night's embarrassing, even though it's a back-to-back and they got to travel, I'm just banking on Milwaukee and Giannis specifically just taking over and just kind of getting the ship right, because again they've been embarrassed and they haven't been doing anything defensively. The Spurs are projected to only shoot 53% on 2-point shots because historically Milwaukee, with their big front court and Giannis, have been good defending the paint.
Mm-hmm. And Jake mentioning in the chat that Wemby's he's just scary to bet on because you don't know how many minutes he's really going to play. So probably
they could take him in now in the fourth quarter, and I figured the last game was their best chance to win out of all these games on the schedule, and they were close with Memphis. And Wemby was playing really well, and then they took him out for a big chunk in the fourth quarter and put him back in with 2 minutes left, and he wasn't even in foul trouble. It's just these minute restrictions. I just want to be curious with this national televised game with who just got the Brooklyn Nets just got fined $100,000 for resting 4 players. So that's going to be interesting. But if they play Wemby, they could just rest him half the game and just say he's on a minutes restriction. They're still playing him. So that's a way around those rules.
And Wemby's like this whole load management started with the Bucks when he sat versus the Bucks a few weeks ago. So hopefully they make up for that.
Yeah. When he stepped on the guy's foot.
Yeah. Well, Derek said he's coming off of having a sore foot, so he is in some kind of minute restriction.
In warm up, he stepped on
do you think that kid's just long gone?
No, if he was on San Antonio, he would be long gone if he was a member of their staff, but he wasn't a member of San Antonio's staff, so I don't think it's anything.
That was crazy.
Is he related to Zaza Pachulia?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's a parlay for this game here. Bucks money line with Wemby over 3.5 blocks and steals at plus money here. Let's see what our Wemby blocks is. I think we were talking about it earlier today.
Blocks and steals. We have Wemby at 3.6.
All right.
So that's good value. And with the money line. So yeah, we have, I think, so we probably have call it 55% chance on the over on one stat and nearly 80% chance on Milwaukee to win. So we put that at right around 40% chance overall. So yeah, I think that's good. We would probably set the line at plus 150 and you get plus 10 more than that.
Nice little 1-2 parlay, LaMelo. Love that for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move over to the other game of the night. The Nuggets headed over to Golden State. We make this a 2-point victory for the Nuggets here, but we like a player prop for our best model value.
Yeah, so after last night's bloodbath, and the last time I took Jonathan Kuminga over on points, rebounds, and assists, he missed it. He didn't play. He only played 23 minutes. His last game against Denver, which was on Christmas Day. But over his last 7, the over is 5-2, 8-4 in the last 12 games, and this basically correlates with the suspension of Draymond. But he's been trending up. His minutes went from 23 to 24, 25, and then 34. His field goal attempts went from 8 versus Denver to 11, 12, and 14. So I'm hoping that continues up. And again, the big athletic forwards for Denver, Porter, Aaron Gordon's back, that you would think Kuminga needs to be there just for matchup reasons. Also, even Gary Payton, who I know is more of a guard than a forward, but he's a defensive wing, he's out. So they're without the 2 best defensive players in Draymond and Gary Payton. So I just think that Kuminga needs to be in there for 30 minutes.
That's all you can ask for right now is to bet on players that we know will be in there. Except Lou Dort. Lou Dort was in the full game, wasn't he?
Yeah, he just had an off night. He's like Bradley Beal shooting.
I think he had a night last night, and we bet on him.
He had, I think, 13 or 14 points, of course, the day after. And less field goal attempts, too. And he had 14 field goal attempts the day before and 9 points and missed like a layup, too. And, of course, yesterday on less field goal attempts, he has a better game. That game was insane if you watched that. Golden State nearly came back in Atlanta last night. That game was crazy. Shea put the team on his back. It was 138 to 141, but they were down 12 with like 2 minutes to go.
Right. All I know is the way things have gone this week, we're due for an epic player prop party weekend coming up. Yeah. I think we're loading up. All right. Any more NBA questions? Please put them in the chat. We're going to move over to 6 quick. We're going to go through some NFL games that have caught a lot of steam, a lot of line movement going on for these Week 18 games, figuring out news and headlines and who's sitting and starting. Let's start up top with the Steelers going to Baltimore. Now, Lamar not playing, but people are starting to realize that maybe this B team that was on a 20-game preseason stretch might not be all that bad.
Yeah, so it had gone up to Pittsburgh 4.5, and now you get to see them 3.5 on the board, and I can see it swing back to 3 because, let's face it, Baltimore's backups are especially even on the offensive line. If they sit Tyler Linderbaum, who made the center, Sam Mustipher was the Bears starter 2 years ago. Ben Cleveland, the backup right guard, had his best game as a pro, filling in for Kevin Zeitler. Our McCary on the left tackle and Faalele on the right tackle have many games played better than the starting tackles. So it's like, and Tyler Huntley, between the 20s, has traditionally been nearly just as effective as Lamar moving between the 20s. Just the red zone is kryptonite, right? So you have a team, and then defensively, even if we're sitting a lot of our corners, let's forget Geno Stone is second in the league in interceptions. So even if Kyle Hamilton's out, Marcus Williams is one of the best free safeties in general. Our corners might be Arthur Millette, Ronald Darby, and Rock Ya-Sin. Like 3 years ago, that's actually a pretty good rotation at cornerback. And so there's a lot of depth. We even have guys like, Tavius Robinson has had moments as a backup edge rusher. So I think that there's obviously the familiarity. So I think that Baltimore could get some steam once you realize that they're actually the B team of Baltimore is pretty good.
It's pretty good, and going up against another backup quarterback. So nonetheless, you don't want to just blindly take the Steelers and the points in this situation because this Ravens B team is a little sneaky here. Interesting game next, Houston and the Colts.
This is
pick 'em. And then we were all over, when I was on HQ yesterday, we were all over the Houston money line, and now we're seeing them catch some steam here.
Yeah, it's like over 90% on both public bets, and even more on the money is on Houston. So actually the movement from, say, Houston +1 to -1 is actually kind of less, you would think, given 90-something%. So I would say the smart money is actually keeping this closer than the public would have it. We don't have any value in this anymore, but I could see this going to 2.5 if the money is really that skewed towards Houston, because Indianapolis just isn't good enough. They're like 20th in the league in point differential, so I can't imagine the odds makers think that, this is an opportunity for us to capitalize, to sucker the public. I just think that they're going to manage their risk a little bit and maybe move that line to Houston and try to get some money on Indianapolis' side.
No, fair enough. All right, let's look down at Tampa Bay going to the Panthers now. Not exactly an act now situation. There's some injuries and Baker Mayfield situation going on. We're trying to figure that out, but definitely, nonetheless, the Panthers catching some steam here.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in Carolina, you probably want to get it now, because I think you can still get +5 in spots. Because Baker Mayfield, the story of Baker is not only his great year this year, but remember what cost him his job in Cleveland was essentially him trying to tough it out and playing through injury and playing terribly. So Baker's got a rib injury. It's just he basically has, like, besides the shoulder that did him in Cleveland, ribs are like maybe the worst injury you could have as far as him. So we know Baker's going to play because everything's on the line. At the same time, we know that he plays very poorly when he's hurt. So I could see the steam coming down with that assumption. And as Derek said earlier, Carolina's defense isn't that bad all the time. So again, that was the big praise. So we'll see. I could see this coming down to even 3.5 or 3. Mm-hmm. If Baker goes out there and is not even practicing today and Friday.
All right, keep our eye on that. Let's move over to 3 more games here before we head out. The Browns going to Cincinnati. Now, from what we are aware of, Cincy's, even though they're not playing for anything, are going to start everyone. So that they might catch some steam here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what they were going to do, but they obviously want to end on a high note. So in our fantasy football today, guys have ranked Chase, Higgins, and everybody, and Mixon all highly in their fantasy rankings for week 18. Not that anyone's really playing week 18, but you can still get 6.5 in spots. So get it before it goes to 7 everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And then another team you can shop around a little bit for, the Jags right now. A lot of the consensus line has moved to -5.5. You can still find them at 5 in some places, Steven.
It's all over the board. So it's 3.5s at, for example, BetMGM, but 5.5 at Circa and other sports books. So it's a pretty big disparity. Definitely something to shop around. But this is another case, sort of like the Baker case. We all know Trevor Lawrence is going to tough it out. He's going to play, and Christian Kirk has a chance of playing as well. He's coming off IR. At the same time, Lawrence does not play well hurt, right? And he's going to be, less than 100%. And the flip side, Tennessee, you hear these reports of Vrabel may not be happy and wanting to stay. And Will Levis is banged up, and they know they're not going to keep Tannehill for next year. Derrick Henry, this could be his last game. Will he want to go on a high note? Will he go out on a not so high note? So you don't know the conflicting motivations of both sides, and the performance level of Trevor Lawrence hurt.
Sounds ugly and confusing. Another ugly and confusing game to try to read is the Eagles going to the Giants, because are they taking it seriously, or are they trying to not get injured?
Yeah, so they have a lot of injury. I mean, unfortunately, I had Devontae Smith over 52.5 receiving yards, and he was well on his way, and then he got hurt and left with a boot on his foot. We all assume that Jalen Hurts has been playing hurt pretty much all year. And, Phillies, their disappointments, they've actually played okay statistically in some measurements, especially defensive-wise, better on the road. So while it certainly stinks to not get the 2 seed, maybe there's some feeling that, hey, maybe we'll be better with kind of the pressure off, with expectations lowered. It's not the worst thing in the world to go on, having to go on the road. That said, so, they're playing at the same time as Dallas. I think that there is a lot of chatter that Philly, especially if they are struggling against the Giants, and if Dallas goes up early, say 10-0 on Washington, maybe they'll, pull off, even if they are playing their starters. So I don't think Philly could do anything in the game that would convince them that they have all their issues turned around. At the same time, they could get healthy and refocused by not playing their starters. So you could argue that they have. Now, obviously, the only negative is if Washington upsets Dallas and Philly doesn't win because they rested everybody.
That is how this would go. Actually, that's probably exactly how this is going to go. And we're here to quote it first. The way this season's gone.
I think it would just mean both teams are done for, because Dallas would, even if Dallas had somehow got the 2 seed, losing, everyone would be so down on them for losing 2 years in a row in the final week to Washington.
Right. What a nightmare. All right. Good things to keep your eyes out now. If you like any of these plays and the steam, you definitely want to act on these now. We'll go back to the other side real quick as well. The Ravens, you want to act on. Houston, if you're still confident in them, it's probably the best value you're going to get before the weekend. Panthers backers, you might want to wait and see what's going on there. But nonetheless, lots to go over. Again, prop party coming up tomorrow. Been a quiet couple of days. Oh, we got a cat now and moose. All right, Jungle King Jake. If you have any other questions, please reach out to us on Twitter. We will see you guys tomorrow. Good luck with your bets.